the 2-cut Pokemon. The internal dex order for the new Kalos Pokemon is laid out differently than how you see it in game. For one, it starts at 701, not 650. And mixed in there are 2 completely cut Pokemon that we know nothing about, and only speculation based on where they're placed. So the first one is at 750, and it's between Bergmite and Avalugg, which might mean that it was possibly a middle evolution for those 2 that was cut. The other one is at 771, which would consider that it was probably a legendary or mythical Pokemon, since that's where the others are. By the way, if you're wondering, the first one in this list starts out with Furfuse, so yeah. It's thought that this Pokemon is replaced by Mewtwo because Mewtwo's national dex number in the files is the only Pokemon that doesn't match it with what it actually is in the actual Pokédex, which makes sense considering how, quickly thrown in everything is, and Mewtwo's just in one little chamber. Okay, I'm gonna level with these last 2 with you that you see here. So, Zygarde Gen 5 and connections between Unova and Kalos being able to go there. Some of you might remember seeing this, some of you might be never saw it, but I actually already made a video talking about these 2 entries, and I go completely full in depth in there, and not only do I not want to repeat myself, but I don't think I could do a better job of repeating it here. So, I'm just gonna leave a link to that video in the description. Definitely watch it. Just to put really short, there was a credible leaker who gave out the Pokédex for Pokemon Black and White before it came out, and the number of Pokemon that they said was going to be in there was 1 more than what ended up being in the final game, and they described a green Cobra-like Pokemon being in there. And then the other one, before X and Y came out, a lot of fans are pointing out all of these connections between it and Unova. We kind of talk about this way in the Caraway Station, means that you would travel there, and people lined up the maps next to each other and knows how they fit in, pretty much perfectly. Again, I go in much more better detail in that video, so watch this. What I will give you, though, are 2 other entries I was informed about when I first posted this Iceberg that aren't on the actual chart. The first has to do with the symbols in the Parfum Palace Garden, and as you can see from this overhead view, they are shaped like Pokemon, and people thought that this would mean something, particularly the top left one, which doesn't match with the rest and doesn't really look like anything. I heard someone say that it looks like Elgyem, but I don't really see it that much. And this is the little area where you chase the Furfuse, so, design-wise it's laid out that way, but in the context of the world, it doesn't really make sense that it doesn't match with the rest, and people wondered if that meant anything, and it's just kind of a weird area for that. And the Sekram and Reshiram statues, which at the time were just like a direct callback to the previous generation, but it's still a bit weird that they're there, and almost makes it feel like that you can find those dragons in, the post-game or something, which you can't. And there's also these other statues of a guy with Golurk and stuff, and it's just another case of it feeling like it's completely scrapped lore that they just never got into. And this last entry, which is really fitting and interesting for the bottom and ties in with everything, is that there was, like with Zygarde and Unova, a very credible, accurate leak that got everything else right. Also mentioned there being a scrapped plot about the game being about aliens and other supernatural events invading, and this was cut for, you guessed it, time constraints, and this was reused in games that came out afterwards, like Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire in the post-game, of course, and then also Sun and Moon, particularly the Ultra games. And that could have been really interesting because, it could make, Haunter or Lysander's, motives make a lot more sense. It would have made Team Flare a much more memorable Men in Black type of thing rather than just, nothing. And yeah, this is also funny because aliens were another scrapped idea for the plot of, Breath of the Wild, and yeah, this is just so fucking too bad because it could have made Gen 6 really cool. All of these entries could have made Gen 6 really cool, but it just never happened, and you know, you could maybe think CA could answer some of these, but like I said before, I think it's just going to be kind of its own lore that doesn't pay much attention. And even then, CA isn't going to be Pokemon C. Like, you know, it's not going to be like the actual Gen 6 games that we want. It's its own thing. It's a Legends game. So, yeah, I don't know, like, here's just hoping that maybe at some point, with all the other amazing things that have been made, I don't know how 3DS modding for these games goes right now, but maybe at some point, some fans could make Pokemon C and just have X and Y, but everything's together, and it adds all of this content, and fills in all of the missing gaps and empty promises, and yeah, that would be pretty cool. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this series, and thank you for watching. Take care.